Welcome back to the channel where we continue on with our Power BI series. We're continuing to work on the basics of DAX, learning the DAX syntax, learning how to connect the tables and the columns in your DAX syntax. And today we're going to talk about 10-day rolling averages, 30-day rolling averages. We're going to use the dates in period function to create a 10-day rolling revenue and a 30-day rolling revenue, all part of our DAX series as we continue to learn Power BI. Today in our Learning DAX series, we are going to create a 10-day rolling average, also a 30-day rolling average, and we're going to do this for revenue and for views. This is what it looks like with the 10-day rolling average, and let's show you how to create this so you can use this in your DAX measures. Creating a 10-day rolling average in Power BI using DAX, what we're going to do now, remember we have our data model, and we built our data model with one fact table, the YouTube data, and one lookup table, the calendar table. So if you have not watched any of the previous videos, we are going to start here. We have been doing some learning DAX basics, and this time around we're going to create the 10-day revenue. Let's start off by making a matrix chart. And the matrix chart is going to allow us to see revenue and date. So first off, we're going to add into the rows from our calendar table the date. So that'll populate every single date for the time frame of this data set, which is January 1, 2022 through May 31st, 2023. In the values, we are going to add our measure total revenue, which is total revenue. And in this context, since the filter is set by day, it's going to bring in the total revenue by day. Now, for those of you with seasonality in your businesses or in your revenue, a lot of times what you'll want to do is look at that as a 10-day rolling average, and that kind of evens out your revenue. So let's start off by creating a new measure. Remember, the syntax for your measure is always going to be the measure name. So we're going to call this a 10-day rolling revenue. And what this allows us to do is Shift Enter, and we're going to start formatting our DAX. The first thing, the dates and period is the main function for this 10-day rolling average to work, but it is inside a calculate function, and we also use the max function in this. So we're going to go calculate, and then we're going to bring up the next line, and the expression, it's asking for the expression, which is total revenue. That is the filter context we're going to change. And when you bring up total revenue, that is then going to ask for the expression, and that is dates and period. And dates and period is really where we're getting this rolling average from. And dates and period ask for the calendar dates. So the calendar table, and we're going to ask for the date measure, which is our primary key. And then we're going to bring in the max function. And the max is what that is looking for, is the max of the calendar. And again, it's that calendar lookup table for the date. So we're going to bring that in. That is going to find the latest date on each of these lines, which is January 1, January 2, January 3, and then it's going to go back 10 days. So the calendar date now, and then what we're going to do is close out the max function, and then we're going to set it at -10, and that's going to close out the max function for the days. And then we're going to close out the final two dates and period, and then we're going to close out the calculate. So what this is doing is calculating the total revenue for the dates and period, and each of those dates and the period is in the matrix on a day-by-day basis, minus 10 days from that day. So that creates the measure, and to see it in the revenue chart, we're going to add the data, and it's the 10-day rolling revenue. So what this does, and then what we're going to quick do is go back to the 10-day rolling revenue and format it to 2 decimal spaces since it's currency. And now we have our 10-day rolling revenue on January 1. it's $3.07. And as we roll forward, it keeps on going back 10 days. So that is your 10-day rolling revenue. Now we're going to do a 30-day rolling revenue and then add in 10-day rolling views and 30-day rolling views. One of the advantages after you have worked with and understood the dates and period function is that you can use these rolling averages for any type of date range that you want to do. So let's add in another measure. This time around, we will start from scratch just to, again, get you comfortable with this dates and period. And a lot of times with DAX, the best way to learn it is to use it and try different functions with your data set. The more you understand your data set. So we're going to call this a 30-day rolling average. That is going to be the measure name. And what we're going to do this time is really the same syntax. We're going to work with the calculate function, and then we're going to add in the expression, which is total revenue. And once we have total revenue, we're going to find the dates and period, which is the actual engine driver of this 30-day rolling average. The dates and period is looking for the calendar table. And we're also looking for the date, which is the primary key. And then we're going to find the max and we talked about max being the latest date in that calendar in the view in this chart, which is day by day. So we're going to find the max. And with that, we're going to look up the calendar date again. And by doing that, that is going to set up the parameter that we want to look for this rolling average. And for us, this time around, the only difference is minus 30 is going to be the days. And then we want 30 days. Then the only thing we need to do is close out the calculate dates and period function and then close out the calculate function. So now we have a 30-day rolling average that we can use to compare with the 10-day rolling average. So inside the chart, we're going to add the data. And we will now add the 30-day rolling average so we can compare that to the 10-day rolling average. So again, we're going to now format this to two decimal places. Whenever you do a new measure, you should always format it for what you want to use it, because the nice thing about measures is that you're going to be reusing them in your data model. When you're new to data analysis, whether you're using Power BI or if you're using even Excel, one of the things you want to do is answer business questions. A good analyst is always trying to think, how can I use this measure in another context? So even though we've already started off with a rolling day average for revenue, we can also use this for views with this data set, or we could use the minutes function. But wow, we're going to try to create a measure, and we're going to create the measure for 10-day rolling views, same format, but a different type of metric that we're measuring. So 10-day rolling views, we're going to use the calculate function. This time around, rather than total revenue, we're going to is total views. And with total views, then at that point, all we're going to do is use the dates and period. And then from the dates and period, we're going to look for the calendar lookup and the calendar date table, find the max in the calendar date. We have the max function, calendar date. Then from there, we just want to go minus 10 days. So what this is going to calculate is the total views for the previous 10 days. And it's similar to the rolling revenue, except we've just changed out the one measure, which is total views. So when we hit enter, the measure will be created, and we can then put that into our matrix and see how the rolling views line up for the all-time views. So what we're going to do now is add in the 10-day rolling views. So all we're doing is really just using that dates and period function, and we can use it for all the different measures. And what this does really is it evens out some of those fluctuations on individual days. As we saw earlier in this data set, they've had as few as 199 views on a day on this channel and as many as 33,000 views on this channel. So if you didn't want to recreate the whole DAX, one of the things that you can do is copy this, Control C, and what we're going to do now is create a new measure. And all we need to do now is we're going to change this to 30 days rolling views. And all we need to change is the period, because the views is still the same. So this is just a pattern that we can use for the DAX. And now we will be able to calculate the 30-day rolling views just by bringing that measure into the table. And once we have that in there, then we have the 4 measures that we created. We have 30-day rolling views. So that is the dates in period to calculate the 10-day rolling averages, the 30-day rolling averages. Again, you could use this for website views. You could use this for website revenue. You could use this for total revenue if you are calculating out daily revenue and quarterly revenue. Once you kind of get the basics of how to write the DAX and think about how to ask the questions, you can use this dates and period for many different DAX measures. That is a look as we continue along on how to learn DAX 10-day and 30-day rolling averages using the dates and period, which incorporates the calculate function, the dates and period, and the max as part of the measure.